Good morning guys. Today we're going to be cooking sweet and smoky sticky wings. I am going to be using the Kriya sweet and smoky spice. This is for supper obviously, and I'm going to be serving it with a little bit of French fries. So I'm going to show you guys what we're going to do is we're going to bake these in the oven. So let me get started with the marinating of the wings, and then I'll prepare a sauce. This will go in the oven to get baked for about 40 to 45 minutes in the evening and get tossed into sauce later on. So what I've got going on here is I have got my wings, chicken wings we're using, and these are chicken wings that have been brined overnight, and basically it's a full wing here. So this has got the tip of your thigh, it's got your wing, and it's got the tip here as well. So full on wings. And if you want to have a look at my brine recipe, then I will post it a bit later on into the video that will go onto YouTube. So for now, what we've done is we have brined these chicken overnight, and these have been patted dry. Alright, so take you guys through the ingredients. I've got some chicken wings here. I am going to be using sesame oil here today. So sesame oil for my marinade, and for the cooking part, remember we are grilling it, so no need to fry this, so we're not using any oil. I've got some red and green chilies that has been chopped finely, and for the marinating with the sweet and smoky spice. Then we're going to move on to the sauce bit, which I'll take you guys through the ingredients now. So let's toss this. I think if I'm not mistaken, I've got about 45 pieces of wings here, and I'm just at this stage I'm basically not working with any set measurements as such. I'm just going to mix that in, add it in, and taste along. Right, so let's get started. First and foremost, we're going to add a little bit of sesame oil, just so that all the spices can get mixed in quite nicely. And the sesame oil that I'm using is organic sesame oil, so it's quite strong and quite potent. The flavors are quite strong and potent. Into the wings, after the oil, goes in salt. So we're going to add salt to taste. So I'm going to add in about a teaspoon and a half. Remember, it's quite a lot of wings that we're adding in here. And I'm also going to add about 3 to 4 heaped tablespoons of the sweet and smoky spice. So that's also going to go in, and I'm just basically get an idea. So this is about, the bottle is about 50 grams, and all of that goes in. Remember, it's a big quantity, so it's about 45 wings that's in here. So all of that goes in. A little bit of heat, which is going in from your red and green chilies. And just to sort of flavor a little bit, I am adding some dark soy sauce in here as well. So a dark soy sauce, I would say about 2 to 3 tablespoons of dark soy sauce into my marinade as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix this quite nicely with my hands and marinate it and keep it aside. Okay guys, so I've marinated this quite nicely, rinse my hands and come back here. So this is what it looks like. I've tasted for salt, I've tasted for seasoning. So I'm pretty happy with about 50 grams of spice that's gone into this here. So remember, it's quite a big quantity. Now what I've got here is I've got tray that I have greased with oil, and I've basically used a brush, and I've prepared 2 trays here, and I'm going to lay all of these wings out in a single layer onto my tray and make sure that I brush it with oil as well on top. And what we're going to do is when it starts to get baked, we'll bake it for about 20 minutes first, and then turn it around and bake it again for another 20 minutes or so. So all in all, they should get baked for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on obviously the type of oven that you're using as well. So for now, let's get this marinated and place it on a tray. Okay, so I have placed all of my wings onto these trays here, and it's taken me about 3 trays. Now I'm going to grab a spatula, and all of this marinade that's left over here, what I'm going to do is just add in a tiny little bit of oil and use this to brush the wings on top as well, so that we don't waste any of this marinade. So just to help us, some oil here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go in and make sure, and even if this is left over, I will use it as it's baking as well to baste, just so that it doesn't get dry. Once this is done, I'm going to move on to my sauce that we're going to use to coat the wings as soon as it comes out from under the oven. So I'll get started with that, keep that ready, and then we'll move on to the baking bit in the evening. Okay guys, so now that we've marinated the wings, let me just show you. This is what the wings look like, nice and marinated. 3 trays of them ready, and we're going to pop them aside and get started with our sauce. So for the sauce, I've got my pan here, and I'm going to put it on and take you guys through the ingredients. What I've got here is some sesame oil, sriracha sauce. I've got orange juice, fresh orange juice, just a little bit for flavor. I've got some Mexican glaze honey here. Dark soy sauce, remember. I've got the same green chilies and red, fresh ginger, garlic, and salt. So let's wait for the pan to get hot, and then we are going to do a quick sauce. So why the orange juice? Because I want it to be not too sweet as well, and I just want a little bit of tanginess coming through, and I don't want to use lemon. I like the sweet and tanginess of the orange juice that we're going to get through, so we're going to use fresh orange juice. If you don't have it, you can use lemon juice as well. Okay, so now that the oil's heated through, I'm going to add in my fresh ginger, and we're just going to saute this for a few seconds. And once that's done, I'm going to add my garlic, and the rest of the ingredients will go along. It's a pretty quick thing. We're going to keep the sauce ready. As soon as it comes out from the oven, we're going to add this, to throw the wings into the pan, just give it a nice toss and serve it. And I will probably do a coleslaw and French fries to go with this. All right, so let's saute this through. All right, the ginger sorted through nicely. I'm going to add the garlic, and straight away add, before it starts fluffing and going all over, I'm going to add some of the dark soy sauce. Like I said, I'm going to add and see if it needs to be added more, then we'll add on a bit later. So I do need quite a bit of sauce because I'm doing a big quantity here. So in goes in about half of a cup of soy sauce. Now, the soy sauce that I'm using is homemade soy sauce, and it's dark and thick and quite rich with flavor. But obviously, if you can't, just grab the dark soy sauce that you find in the market. So I may have to end up doing a double batch of the sauce, but let's just see how this is going to last us or take us. All right, in goes in a little bit of the chilies. So the soy sauce and the green chili has come to a nice boil. I am now going to add in about, let's start off with about a cup of orange juice. Remember, you can just halve these quantities if you are using half the amount. I am using quite a lot of wings. Yeah, so to thicken the sauce a bit later on, I'm actually going to use potato starch, but you can actually, and the only reason why you use it, why we're using potato starch or a medium to thicken it, is just so that it coats our wings really nicely. So just a little bit. You can easily use corn flour as well if you don't have an issue with it. I'm not particularly a fan of corn flour, so I'm going to avoid that. Right, orange juice gone in, sriracha going in. And obviously that also depends on the sort of heat that you're looking for. How strong do you like it? So I don't want this to be very, very spicy, but I do want it to have a bit of kick as well. Right, so with all this going in, we're going to add in salt. The soy sauce that I have, obviously that I have used, doesn't really have a lot of salt in it, because remember I made this at home, so I control the salt that goes in there. And now I'm going to add in this honey from Alfay. So I'm using their cooking honey with Mexican flavors. So about a tablespoon or so. of that going in as well. 2 tablespoons. Let's add that. Taste. And we'll check. So you can see the consistency of the sauce is quite runny, and if we reduce it, obviously it won't be enough. So the potato starch is going to come in at this stage, just as soon as we reheat the sauce before the wings come out of the oven. Okay, so that's it. It's come to a boil. Have a look at the consistency here. We're going to add about 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons of potato starch, just to thicken it, just before we add the wings in here. And then we're going to let this coat quite nice, and we should be done. Most of the elements ready. The fries, with the French fries, will get fried later on. I'll probably do a coleslaw to go with this. This will go in the oven about 25 to 30 minutes on about 180 on in my induction oven, and then thereafter I'll increase the heat and keep turning it around so that it crisps up and browns up quite nicely before we take it out and toss it into the sauce here. Hi guys, it's this evening and I've put my oven on here. So I've got 3 trays of wings that we prepared earlier. One is in my normal electric oven and the other 2 are gone into my induction oven on 160. So I'm going to leave this for about 25 to 30 minutes on 160, turn them around and then increase the heat a little bit just so that we crisp up the skin. So while that gets done, the sauce is ready. I'm going to get prepared with the coleslaw. Okay then guys, we're going to get started with the coleslaw. So I've got some red cabbage and green cabbage. I like to do a mix of both because I like the color that I get from both. So that's finely shredded, and I usually like to shred my own cabbage because I find the ones in the packet sometimes are a bit watery. Okay, 1 apple thinly sliced going in here. I've also got some celery that's finely chopped, stalks going in there, fresh garlic going in here, salt, and I am using Himalayan salt. I always use Himalayan pink salt. Okay, in goes in pepper, okay, so I like to do a little bit of both, so half and half. So I'm going to add some mayo, and I am going to add the equal amount of double cream yogurt. I just find it tends to get less heavy that way. So that's done, and a good drizzle of maple syrup. And we're going to give this a good mix. And we're just going to season, and I'm going to sprinkle some spring onion, and that's my coleslaw done. Okay guys, so this is done. I've tasted for seasoning. In goes in a whole lot of spring onions. For me, it's very important to bring in flavor from fresh herbs. I find that there is no better way of flavoring your dishes other than getting lots of fresh herbs and fresh ingredients in there. Coleslaw ready, and now we're going to move on to just heating through that sauce because the wings are nearly done in the oven, and we are just going to add a little bit of potato starch and thicken the sauce up. My chips are on. I am simply frying those chips, and we're going to serve it. And I've also boiled some sweet corn, so I'm going to serve sweet corn, French fries, coleslaw, done for the day. All right guys, so I have started heating my sauce up. I've got some potato starch that's ready here. You can easily, like I said, use corn flour. I've made a little slurry out of it, which basically just means is taking your corn flour or potato starch and adding a little bit of water and making sure that it is a paste, a runny liquid paste. And what we want to do is, as soon as it starts heating through, we're going to add this into our sauce here and just make sure it gets a little bit glossy and just thick enough. for us to coat those wings. This has come to a boil. I am going to add the corn flour, and I just want to make sure it gets a little bit thick and glossy. I mean, not the corn flour, the potato starch. So I have quite a bit of wings in here, and I need enough sauce. So I'm just going to leave it at this. And I can always add later on if I must. So let's get this out of the oven. Oh, and this is what they look like. They're nice and brown. So we're going to take all of the trays out, or 3, and then throw this into the sauce. Okay then, and that's what the wings look like. They're nice and brown and crisp up, and I am going to start adding this into my sauce here and just giving this a bit of a toss, and we should be done. So at this point, my temperature is not it's not very high. I just want all of the wings to soak up all of the sauce. I also want to gauge and see if I don't over dry my sauce also. Okay guys, so I was actually pretty spot on. My sauce was just perfect. There is a little bit left here, but remember we need something to sort of just dip and make sure that we don't want overly dry as well. So by the time I dish this out and everything, it's going to soak in all these sauces. So remember also, as I emptied out, I made sure that I took all of these last bits that were in my tray. Those are all the flavors. You don't want to be losing out on that. And I am going to dish this out. I've got my mealies that are ready here and my chips that I fried. So let me just show you guys. That's ready here. I simply boiled some mealies and fried some chips. I'm going to dish this out and serve. And yes, my coleslaw is also done. So that's my coleslaw ready here. And yeah, we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of chives on top here, and that's supper done. Okay, so we are just going to empty this out, and these look super nice, and they're quite tasty as well. So, oops.